Hello and welcome to this demonstration of Infinity Cloud 365 Secure. Many of you already know who I am, but if you don't, my name is Robert Thompson, and I'll be taking you through this guide on basically a demonstration on what it does, what it is, why you need it, and then I'll give you an actual demonstration. So the contents of this demonstration will be what it actually does. This will be in a literal sense, not in a sales sense, of what it provides us and can provide you, why you need it, and then the two demonstrations at the end, which I think you'll find really valuable. So what does it do? So in basic terms, it essentially creates notification alerts, which by default come to us, but can also be tailored to go to an email address of your choice. These are alerts basically from extracting information out of Office 365 that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get notified on without going through logs, trawling through information, clicking multiple times just to get one step done out of maybe hundreds. This also allows you to get security notifications much quicker in a way that can actually protect you in the event of a breach. And I'll give you some examples as we go. So creation of admin accounts. When we first set this up, it allows us to have a good review through the admin accounts. Typically, we're an admin if we manage your Office 365, but you may have another IT company who looks after 365 or inject their own licenses in. And you may also have staff who are admin accounts. The very first step of this is we go through them and make sure that you're happy with all of them. We also make sure that they have their MFA set up. The advantage of this, basically, if you've got an admin account that you don't want, you don't need, and maybe you've forgotten about, or maybe it's been added somewhere along the line, it allows you to know about it and close it off. So if you've got a member of staff that was given it for a particular project and they've still got admin access, they can still give themselves access to any mailbox they like, you can cut it off. But it also lets you know if one's been created. So if one's been created somewhere along the line and you're not aware of it or you just want to review it, you get a notification. Next up is the creation of forwarding rules outside the business. Now, this typically ties in with your phishing email. So if you've had a member of staff who has fallen for one of these phishing emails where they have entered in their credentials into a website and the website's fake, it's stolen their credentials, and it's immediately then opened up OWA, logged in, and set up a rule that forwards any emails from, say, a particular person or contain a particular word such as credit card, bank transfer, or anything financial related, and forwards it externally out of the business to a Gmail account or wherever, and maybe even sets it so that those emails disappear in the intended recipient's inbox so that only the intruder receives a copy of the email. So you get immediate notification if a rule's been created by that. Absolutely vital in stopping the departure of data and or financial fraud happening within an organization. So that's good. Creation of transport rules. So this is similar to the above, but this can be something much more subtle. Like rather than they forward it out to a Gmail account, they rule the email into something like your RSS feeds folder, which is a folder you'll never ever go in Outlook. You're not going to go looking in there. Even if you notice that it had 7 unmarked emails in it, you're probably not going to go looking. Or they bury it deep within your inbox tree in a subfolder that you just don't go into. So let's say something to do with a credit card transfer comes in, the rule immediately moves it into that folder. You never see it, and the person who has access to your mailbox goes and browses that folder and gets the information they need. They can send a genuine reply from your account going back saying, hey, yes, transfer the money to blah, 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 and the money will be gone, and there will be no notification. Without this, there would be no way of you ever knowing unless you stumbled onto that path of information as it moved through your mailbox. So that's a transport rule. And also these can be done at a higher level. So this linked to the admin accounts. If you've got an admin account that is unsecured and it gets compromised by a third party, they can set these rules up at server level. So the email cannot even receive in the inbox of the person. It can be routed off anywhere in the world. Easy peasy with a transport rule. So you get to approve all of these. And again, you get these in when you get set up, you get these, and then you can also have them in real time as well. And logins from users outside their normal working locations. Now, this is the big one, really. This is the one that will protect most people from something bad happening in the event of a phishing attempt or something along those lines. So let's say person A is working in Reading, and they are in Reading all day, every day, and they've got no holidays planned. And we get an alert saying that they have been logged in, say, China. And we get the alert. Our first protocol is call the person in question, get hold of someone at the business who, if we can't get hold of them, just make sure that they are in the country, make sure that they are not in China and that they are not traveling, maybe doing procurement, and they are actually there. If they are in the business, then it's immediately a breach. Someone has compromised their password, finessed their password via social engineering or via phishing, and has logged into this account for the first time from this remote location. Now, the immediate action is change the password, sign out of all accounts. This immediately cuts off the threat as soon as physically possible. And the password being changed and the sign-outs happen, it doesn't matter if they're logged in on their screen, they will immediately get reverted back to the login screen. They won't have the password. At that point, you can do some employee education and you can just explain how not to fall for these sort of things again. And again, that's the kind of thing we can help you work on. So really, really good information. And it's absolutely everywhere at the moment. You'll see it maybe once a day, every day, at some point in your organization. These emails are everywhere. So the next question we always get is, why do we need it? So with regards to why you need it, that comes into the lack of ability to get this information outside of Office 365 if you don't go looking for it. Again, let's use the example of the person logging in from China. So if it wasn't for this platform, the only way to get that information out of 365 is if you were to go, if every member of staff really was to regularly go into their My Logins history and have a look. And obviously that's not going to be sitting there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, checking that. That's just impractical. And you might think, what my IT systems manage, surely they're going to be checking. There's no way for any IT company to be able to go through this amount of data in real time without just it taking days and months and years and falling behind. It's too much data in too real time to be able to effectively manage it without a platform that can automate it and basically do all of the computing for you. So very important that you understand the difference between what's already in place and what this offers, because it's completely and totally different. Furthermore, the Office 365 information that comes out into the security reports, which I'll show you, again, is something that you can only get in a snapshot through using a third-party piece of software which can extract that information on bulk and present it in a way that's actually quite nice to look at. So, for example, it's you in your business, you want to see all of the mailboxes and all of the people who have access to those mailboxes so that you can make sure you didn't do a project somewhere along the line where person A needed access to person B's email and that project is now finished, but person A still has access to person B's email and inadvertently maybe sees something sensitive or some HR matter that goes through their email and they shouldn't have had access to it. And at the end of the project, it wasn't reviewed. This allows you to regularly, at your desire, check into the reports and see what's there. So that gives you an idea of how it's so important and how it's so different to what Microsoft provide out of the box. With the current level of licensing that all of our customers have, you just do not have any other way of getting this information. There really isn't any other way of finding out if someone has logged in to your account from somewhere else in the world or even somewhere else in the country, or even you can tighten it down to how specific you want to be. And it has modes for holidays. So if someone's going on holiday to, say, Switzerland for 2 weeks and we know about it in advance, great, we can put it in. We can put their return date and no alerts will be created. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world. We just call up and say it's such and such in Switzerland. And typically the answer is yes. No harm, no foul. We ask when they're back. We set a time on the alert so that it expires when they leave. just in case any bad actors were to log in from Switzerland, having maybe finessed or captured login credentials during the vacation. So it protects you once you're gone. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I've got MFA. I don't need this. All of my accounts are protected by MFA. I couldn't possibly get someone logged into my account without my say-so. We wish that were true, but unfortunately, there are so many ways of even finessing people's multi-factor authentication out of you that there's no way to be 100% sure that all of your staff haven't sat there and just tapped yes on their phone when they're in the middle of a really busy day. Maybe they were logging in at the same time. They get two, one's real, one's not. They don't know. They click yes. They carry on. No harm, no foul. Bearing in mind, these people will not be logging into these accounts at the exact moment you've fallen for these phishing campaigns, because that would set off alarm bells. They can be 90 days later. If you haven't changed your password in that time, then they could log in all of a sudden out of the blue, and you might be, like I say, in the middle of something, approve the MFA. It can totally happen, and it has happened, unfortunately, in the past. So the other problem with this is if you are allowing an MFA person in, what they do is they create their own MFA. So they add their own basically app or phone into your account. And it means that if they then need to log in down the line at a later date, they can keep themselves authenticated and keep approving your logins with their phone, which means they can do it in the middle of the night. And if they're quick enough, they can do it without even you getting an alert on your phone. If they change the order of priority, for example, it causes no end of grief. So gives you an idea of how severe the issue is if you don't take precautions. What I'll do now is I'll go through a typical security report. So this is the reports. They're optional, although we will provide one at the start for free. But by default, they are optional unless you want it. And you can pick and choose when you want. You can have one every 6 months, one every year. You can just say, I want one this month. Or you can opt out and you can not have any reports. But to give you an idea, to help you make your mind up, this is the reports. So basically it's an HTML file that we can email. This means it's an interactive report. It's not like a PDF that you scroll up and down. It's all interactive. You can export data from it to create your own reports if you need to show it to people without showing them all of the data. And it's pretty customizable, as I'll show you as I go. So the dashboard basically for this test company essentially gives you an overview. So it tells you all about whether or not you've got logging on, whether you've got password expiry, active sync, POP, IMAP, old technologies for phones, and basically a nice summary, and I'll go through in a bit more detail. So starting with the admins. These are global administrators, help desk administrators, Intune administrators, Teams administrators, and SharePoint administrators. Things like that, basically, that are specifically flagged in Microsoft 365 to give a user the ability to maybe do some maintenance or do some administration. And they're part and parcel of the process. But with all administrators, particularly billing administrators and global administrators, you want to make sure that they have MFA, multi-factor authentication, on in every case. These are particularly sensitive accounts. It's one thing for a member of staff to have their account compromised and some of their emails being accessed in the SharePoint. But it's a completely different thing for an administrator to get access from a third party, because if a bad person gets into a global administrator account, it doesn't even bear thinking about. They can essentially delete your entire organization, all your SharePoint, all everything. They can revoke all of the access to all the backup applications that are coming in from the outside world and pulling the data out. They can shut all that down. They can forward any email. They can change any email to anywhere. They can basically pretend to be anyone doing anything. So absolutely vital. The global administrators are set to MFA. So this fake report highlights in particular, say, Quinn here, who doesn't have MFA on, and that would be a action, an immediate action request right now. Get that sorted. Basically, if anything, if we are looking after your Office 365, having seen this, we would immediately go and lock it anyway, because it's just the risks are too great. So this allows you to see if you've got any of those and see and act accordingly. There's also columns on the right hand side. So for example, is blocked. So if you've got anyone that's actually even maybe left and therefore you've blocked their login, there's sure as heck no reason to have them settle as an administrator, since they can't even sign in. They're currently blocked. So gives you a good chance to have a tidy up. And there's a bit of a breakdown on how the distribution is amongst your organization. Obviously, you don't want too many global administrators. It's just asking for trouble, too many points of entry, and you want to keep that to an absolute minimum. Moving on to the users, this is a nice little overview. Again, you can customize it, so we can see here 15 view, we can set it to 25 instead, and makes the report a bit longer, but it allows you to see at a glance the overall status of your users. Now, this will be really handy for just getting a nice grip of who is still licensed, who is still available, who's locked out, making sure ex-members of staff are locked out, and whether or not they're compliant with like modern standards. So, for example, if we look at Alfie here, his MFA is enabled, his ActiveSync is disabled, he does not have a mobile phone with email on, POP, IMAP, MAPI, and SMTP is disabled. So, and even OWA is disabled. So essentially what he uses is maybe Outlook on a T server. That would be an example. Outlook on a T server. That's all he needs. He doesn't need to be going into webmail. He doesn't need to be accessing it from home. He doesn't need to be on a mobile phone. So he's got everything he needs. And you lock it down. And so you can see immediately he's in a great shape. So you can look at these others as well. We're looking for red. We're looking for blue. Basically, we're looking for people that have not logged in for a while and they're not secure. Let's, for example, see Jennifer here. It's a shared mailbox. It hasn't been used in 757 days. Login is not blocked, and it still has POP and IMAP, which means if the password can be finessed, guessed even, POP and IMAP can be set up and emails can be used from that account to maybe create some problems. So it's very, very useful, and at a glance it allows you to get an idea of who is still in the business from an IT standpoint, whether or not they have physically departed the company or not. And then again, there's some summaries to give you an overview at the end. Licenses, obviously, the joys of Microsoft 365 is licenses come and go, staff come and go, and it can be very difficult to keep track of who's got what and how many you've got. So, for example, this gives you an idea of how many licenses you've got, how many are assigned, and how many are free. Free licenses are costing you money and you're not getting anything in return. So if you're on a monthly plan rather than an annual commitment, it might be time to cut those off and save a little bit of money until you replace the member of staff or you grow again and you need the license. So that's a good way of saving a few pennies and also making sure that you're not wasting anything. Mailbox access. As I mentioned earlier, this would be an overview of who has access to whom's mail. So if you had maybe a PA, you would see the person having access to their mail here. If you had a group mailbox, again, this would show in here if lots of people have access. And like I say, if you had holiday cover, maternity leave cover, paternity leave cover, this would show in here too. So this is a great way of just making sure that those who have access to others' mailboxes should have access. Mobile devices, so this doesn't have any demonstration helpfully, but this is basically everyone who signs into their mobile email, for example, will show in here. And again, this is a great way of seeing if you've got any ex-members of staff who've still got access from their phone and they're still checking in. Really good opportunity to sort of tighten up on your leavers procedure, get everything buttoned down in such a way that you don't let things like this happen. Contacts. So this is basically a contacts in Office 365 are like mailboxes, but they don't need licenses and they don't store any data. So you can put anyone in as a contact. And a contact allows you to put in external email addresses. So you can have loads of contacts here, and a lot of them will be external. And you want to make sure that they're all still active and used. They're basically they're probably people you've invited to Teams meetings, to SharePoint, and things like that. They're by themselves, they're not a bad thing, but you just have to be wary of them. Resources. So resources are basically like your meeting room. So if you created a mailbox specifically for your boardroom, this allows you to see. And again, it's a good way of just tidying up, making sure that you don't have any endpoints and meeting rooms and things like that that are basically unnecessary, clogging up your database. Groups. So everybody typically has groups, be it distribution groups, be it internal department groups, things like that. And on the ones on the left are basically your internal ones. One's on the right. So maybe once upon a time you did a project for a group and it was for a particularly large project. It had a lot of third parties and email was coming into these groups and being distributed to all the members of the group, including the external party. Let's say the project's finished, but you found the email address useful as a way of speaking to everybody internally. But you've since forgotten that there are a bunch of external members. who are quietly just ignoring the emails they're seeing on the tree, but for all you know, because something sensitive could pass through it. So it gives you a chance to make sure these external members are actually wanted and current. If not, you cut them off, you delete them, or you take action. Whatever works. Forwarding. So this allows you to see emails that are forwarding internally and externally. So in this demonstration, you can see here, equipment is forwarding to Quinn. This is a great way of just reminding yourselves of the forwards you've set up. Maybe you've got external members of staff that emails are still forwarding. You're wondering why you're getting more spam and nothing you're getting from that person is relevant anymore. Could be time to cut that off. Really useful. External forwarding. Now, this is where it would show if someone had compromised an account and they had basically set up a forward to their external email address, like a Gmail or a Hotmail or an AOL account, and it's forwarding emails that are involving credit cards. This is where it would show. So this is we don't want to see anything in here, but this is where it would show. Now the alerts would notify us in real time. You typically wouldn't wait for it to be on a report, but as we onboard customers into this product and we create the reports straight away without even setting up notifications, we can immediately find problems. And we have had this product save, I think it's 7 at the time of recording, people have had compromised access from outside the business and have rules, and basically data is being scoured and it is being filtered and sent externally. So this would show for onboarding. You wouldn't typically see this on a report if we're monitoring the alerts, but it's good to know. Nice to see it. Transport rules. So this is kind of like a classic alert. If the message is received from alerts at Office 365, take the action, set the spam confidence level to -1. So never, ever block these as spam. So these are standard rules. These are great little internal things for basically making sure that mail flows in the way it should, or basically goes where it needs to be without triggering spam filters, and making sure that personal emails maybe don't go to groups, they instead go into individual mailboxes. If you've got a family member that has a work email, you can put rules in there to stop them from going into any groups. Transport rules that forward externally. So this is basically kind of like a rule that is beyond the forwarder. So beyond just forwarding someone's email to the outside, this could be a rule that does something sneaky. So here we go. We've got forward to home. If the message is sent to support@demo.com and includes the message Sydney in the subject, redirect it to Ermin blah blah blah.co.uk. Now, this is where you'd also find malicious forwarding rules to the outside. So if email contains the word credit card, forward the email to blah blah, right? Now, that's not the only level of problems you could have. Unfortunately, you can have the situation of a disgruntled member of staff, or a member of staff who just doesn't take security that seriously, and they forward all emails to home, to their Gmail account, so that they can maybe log in at home, they can still prepare for the next day, or maybe they want to work late, but they don't have access to company resources at home because you haven't allowed them those resources. They forward it home, they can work on maybe a document that they can then bring in with all the email addresses they need, and great. But the problem is, if that has a malicious side, is you didn't want them to have access in the first place, and it was for a reason. You don't want them forwarding it home. They forward something out of the business which has a credit card information, an address, or any other personal details. It's a GDPR breach. And on top of that, there could be rules forwarding particular customer emails, particular customer lists, things like that to their external mailbox because they intend to leave and they basically want to take some data with them to make themselves more attractive to potential employers or competitors. So good way of picking up anything like that that raises any red flags and allows you to deal with accordingly. Inbox rules, these are ones that people have set up themselves, but they can typically be anything. So this could show individual rules that basically people are moving emails. So maybe they get too many emails from a particular company. They've set up a rule to put it into its own folder. That's great, really useful, but it allows you to just skim through it and make sure there's nothing bad, like we mentioned with the person maybe forwarding finance-related emails into their Office 365 folders somewhere deep in there, and you can't find it and you're never going to see it, but they know it's in there, so they know to go looking. And again, this includes external rules. So maybe someone has set up a rule saying, if email comes from such and such, forward it to blah, blah. Maybe they set it up for a project, or maybe it's malicious. But either way, it allows you to take action cut it off and stop it. And again, this would be alerted in real time at its creation if the company is already onboarded with us on this. Action points. So this is typically just a nice overview of sort of Office 365 best practices, how you can shore up and how you can basically improve your security. As a result of some of this, typically we work with the companies to try and get this looking in better shape. These action points we would go through with you, so I'm not going to go through them now, but they include things like making sure you've got multi-factor authentication, disabling POP and IMAP as a business. Really, in general, no one needs this. And just making sure that you're in good shape. And it's just a really nice report to give you some action points as a whole to give you a bit more of an overview into how you are. Glossary of terms, obviously, IT people, we talk a lot of nonsense. We say a lot of words that you might not understand. And the glossary here just gives you an idea of some of those terms. So really nice and friendly, puts it in kind of plain English, and it gives you a bit of a grasp as to what the heck we're going on about sometimes. So that gives you an idea of what it does, what it is, why you need it, and gives you a nice overview of the reports, which again are optional, but we will be giving them everyone with their first month, just so you can get an idea, and then you can opt in every now and again. But rest assured, without the reports, you will still have real-time monitoring and alerting as to when something bad is created, such as a forwarder or someone logging in from the outside world. So the second and final report that we provide is the most popular one. This is the one that everybody loves, because this is giving you details on X period of time. So let's say in this one, this report is 10 days, but we can go as far as 90. Any more than that, the report can take over 24 hours to create. The reason being is there's just so much information. So this particular 10-day report of this rather small company has created 102 pages or 1,500 entries. That's an awful lot. Now, to find this information of where you've logged in and when, typically you would have to scour these logs. So you would be getting this log into Excel and scouring it for countries and looking at IP addresses, which again, you don't get presented by default with the address. You just get presented with the IP address. This is then checked by our software to find where. So the most important bit, the bit everybody loves, is this. This is the map of the world and where people are logging in from. Now, this is a UK-based company in this demonstration. The greens, the yellows, and the blues, well, they're only blues, but the greens and the yellows are successful logins, and typically these would be legitimate inside the UK. You can't VPN into the UK without leaving a trail. So it's very unlikely, say, for example, someone from a Far East country would log in, pretend to be in the UK so that we don't pick this up. It's very, very, very unlikely. VPNs are a thing, but they don't typically happen outside into the UK without leaving a very clear trail. Inside out, it's a bit better. But again, if your staff are VPNing out, this will show and we'll pick up on it and it can be cleared up. So this shows bad logins. So let's go, for example, over to South Korea. So we can see here that there's been a bad login from South Korea. We can click it and we can see that there was a failed login for Andrew in South Korea. So bad logins are just someone trying the username and password and getting it wrong. They don't necessarily, there's nothing to panic about, but it means that you need to keep your wits about you. There are people trying to get in to your account from these places. So has Andrew got MFA on? Because they eventually could guess his password right. Could just be time. They could keep trying at a regular rate, but not enough to set off Office 365 auto blocking feature. They could keep trying. One day they'll get in. You know, they got years maybe. So is his MFA on? You want to make sure his MFA is on. Now, the worst bit is if we create one of these reports and we see green in somewhere outside the UK and somewhere outside of a holiday destination, let's say the middle of Russia. You get a login. They didn't go on holiday. We see green. Now, we have created reports and we have seen green logins from these countries. And this means that we've had to cancel our demonstration like this with the customer and immediately go and lock them down, find the user account, sign them out, change the password. And then it's going to be a case of, well, what have they been doing and then you have to do an after action report, and they may have to do a GDPR breach report because they could have been in the company for, say, 90 days, having a mooch about, having access to whatever that person has access to. So this report is massively valuable. It's really reassuring to see that no one's been actually successfully logging in. So this would be a successful report in this example, showing that no one has logged in unexpectedly from anywhere outside the country of origin. So really, really useful. And again, to give you an idea, this is the information that you'd be trying to scour through. It's just not really usable. There's no IT company and no internal admin is going to be able to go through a report like this. Bearing in mind, it wouldn't have the countries. It would just have the IP addresses and the dates and times. And you'd have to check every IP address on an IP address checker to find the country and cross it off. There's an awful lot of data to go through. And this is a small company, and only 10 days. So that is an awful lot of data to go through. And it's not really possible in any way, shape or form. So yeah, this piece of software allows you to see it in a glance, makes it easy, and gives you that peace of mind. I hope that gives you a really good idea of what the product is, why you need it, and how important it is in today's Microsoft 365 atmosphere to make sure you absolutely have done everything you can to stop people accessing the business, getting data out. If you've got any questions, please get in touch with us. Go to the website, email us, create support tickets, get hold of the sales team, any way you like. We can do further demos, individual demos, and answer any questions you have. Thanks a lot.